Hey everyone, this is Ashley from SurrogateFirst, four-time surrogate here. I am so excited to be able to cover one of the topics that we've created for this year's webinars. We are doing our series on misconceptions, so surrogacy stereotypes explained, misconceptions. We'd love for our audience participation, so you're more than welcome to question and answer. If you're not currently in the webinar, you're seeing this on Facebook Live, go ahead and leave comments. We'll follow up with those comments at the end of the webinar. We also will be going through how to contact us if you have any questions, but I'm just so excited. We will try to make this a very quick webinar. I'm talking like 15-20 minutes, and then we'll leave about 10 minutes for questions at the end, if that sounds good for everybody. We may have a poll too at the very end. We are technology, I would say sometimes technology is not the best with me and Yessenia, so we definitely will try our best to get that poll up in our webinar. If you are interested in joining our webinars, we are going to be putting out our calendar for the year on www.surrogatefirst.com. So please feel free to check out our website in the following weeks, where every other week we'll be doing a webinar. We have some really amazing ones coming up, just so that you're aware. We will be interviewing different clinics, insurance providers, mental health professionals. So let's just definitely, stick around. There's a lot of information. We want to be able to help educate and support our surrogates and intended parents, not just ours as in our agency, but also in general, just the community of surrogates and parents. So that's kind of a little bit about me and our webinar series. I'm going to let Yessenia introduce herself too, as she's part of our team for surrogate educators. And if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about you and kind of what you were covering, and I'll pull up the PowerPoint.
Yes. So everybody, my name is Yessenia and I work with SurrogateFirst. I am a surrogacy educator. I am a one-time surrogate. I gave birth around 7 weeks ago on February 18th for my first surrogacy journey. I really love talking about surrogacy, educating, surrogacy ethics, everything to do to spread education on surrogacy. And that's why we like to do these webinars, just to spread education, because there are a lot of misconceptions and myths when it comes to surrogates. And so we're definitely going to talk about that today. And it's crazy how when you become a surrogate, you learn about all these things. And I really didn't expect some of these, but some of these that we're talking about today have been brought up to me multiple times. And so I definitely want to talk about it today.
Awesome. And even I don't know if you heard some, but I had my own misconceptions before I even started looking really into surrogacy. Obviously you'll probably cover them, but when you were researching, or even before, when someone said the word surrogacy, did you automatically think oh, I understand this and it's going to be, I have no problems or concerns? Or were you kind of how does that work and what is that?
Well, I feel like I did know a lot about it since even being a child. I know a lot of people learned about surrogacy for the first time. I'd seen the movie Baby Mama when I was a young kid, but that definitely has a weird take on surrogacy, but it definitely opened my eyes to it. I've always understood that the baby wouldn't be my child. And it's crazy how many people really do think that it is our child that we're carrying. So that's probably one of the biggest ones that I get. They always think that it's our child.
Oh, yeah, for sure. For me, it was how do we get pregnant? That was how does that work exactly? Because I never heard of it. So I was born and raised in Hawaii. And so for me, it was kind of what is that? I've heard of we have a strong, word called hanai, which is an adoption. So you've had family members that had children and adopted them to an aunt or an uncle, or, or your grandma took care of you or things like that. But this was I didn't even know this was possible. It was just crazy. And when we dealt with secondary infertility, I started to learn about it, and I was like, oh my gosh, there's there's all these people, 1 in 6 couples deal with miscarriages.
Yes.
They deal with infertility. This is a very serious thing, and we can help with that. So yeah, it's definitely been a learning experience for me. Let me see if I can change the page. There we go.
Yeah, so I already kind of went over this one. This is just my introduction about me, that I love to talk about surrogacy. I'm a TikTok surrogacy influencer, and I was a first-time surrogate. And I also was an egg donor. That a lot of people don't know that about me, that I was an egg donor, and I did that before I was a surrogate.
And you've got cute babies of your own, so you know what
Yeah.
it's like to go through pregnancy and the joy your children bring you. Oh, yes, this one. Let's touch on this one.
Yes, so this is the first misconception, is you must be making a lot of money, you must be rich. Since I have such a big platform on surrogacy, you guys would not understand how many people message me asking me for money regularly. Lots of people ask me for money. They think that I am suddenly rich. They think we're getting $100,000, $200,000. They think that we're getting rich off of doing surrogacy. But I want to say that surrogates, like, we do get paid good money, but most of the time we're not just splurging this money. We're doing it for valuable things for our own families. So many surrogates, they become a surrogate to pay off student loans. They pay off debt. They'll maybe take a family vacation that they really wanted to, or do a down payment on their first home, as well as savings for their own family. So these are some things that I did with my surrogate money. I have saved up a lot of money for a down payment on my first home. I did take a vacation, and I do have savings from being a surrogate. And I'm not just extremely rich from doing this. We are paid adequately, but we're not extremely rich. We don't have like tens and thousands of dollars to just be handing out. And so, yeah, so most of the time surrogates pay off debt, and they just save money for their own families. And there's nothing wrong with that. I don't know why people always think surrogacy is evil because we're getting paid, and it's not like that at all. We're paid for our time. We're paid for our commitments. It's more than a year of our lives that we're dedicating to this journey. And I think being compensated is fair.
No, I definitely agree. And, to go a little bit further, I think some people see the full ticket amount of surrogacy. So for the intended parents, not including the creating of their embryos or their clinics, like cost for medications or screening the surrogate, but for the actual surrogacy journey of the agency fee, legal team, because there's 2 contracts involved, travel expenses, medical insurance for you, your copays, deductibles, premiums, and then on top of compensation, like your base compensation, there's all the extra milestones and bonuses and reimbursements. So for that whole entire process, I would tell parents, budget for 115 to 150,000.
Yes.
So I think sometimes people think that goes all to the surrogate, but it doesn't.
Yes.
There's so many different aspects. There's court filing fees. And I mean, there's probably like 15,000 easy in just health insurance. And so, I think people think like we get all of that. We don't. We get a fair compensation. And I don't know if you'd agree, because you are on all the social media platforms. So you talk to a lot of surrogates from all different types of independent, different agencies. But I would say that the average for a first time or a second time surrogate is anywhere from 40,000 to about 65,000. I'm seeing like for, obviously experienced surrogates get, compensated at a higher cost. But for a first time, probably about like 40 to 50, most times that's where they're at, depending on their location. So yeah, it's nice. But if you break that down into like hours per like being pregnant and medical screening and legal for like the 2-year process or year and a half, we get paid like pennies or dollars an hour.
Yes. And I always try to put it into perspective that we're lucky here in the United States that we can even be compensated. Places like Canada, they cannot get compensated anything for doing this except for medical bills and anything pregnancy related, but they don't get any extra compensation. So I always feel like $40,000 to $50,000, that is a lot of money at the end of the day. And parents spend so much money to even have this. And to me, surrogacy is a medical necessity for many of these families.
Yeah, it actually is supposed to be the only way that you can do surrogacy is by having a medical, physical medical condition that would not allow you to carry your child to term. So I think I'm sure you've got that in here. So we won't go into detail about that, but I definitely agree with you. I always tell people, if you're looking to surrogacy for the money, it's not worth it, because you're going to go through months of like shooting yourself in the hip, with medications, and it's never guaranteed that the transfer is going to work the first time, or the pregnancy is going to be completed to the full pregnancy. And so you really have to go into it. Like, I feel like at my weakest moments, because I'm like 2 weeks away and I'm like, oh baby, get out. You know, at this point, it's the love I have for the family and knowing how much their child means to them that pushes me through. It's not the weight gain and the back pain and the sciatic nerve. And like, I was in a conference today and I had to turn off my camera because I got a back spasm, like
God.
there's no amount of money when you're going through those things, so it really, you have to have the heart for it. So I love this slide because this is definitely, I always ask people in our intake interview, like, so what are you going to do with the $1 million? And they always laugh. They're like, people think that, don't they? And I'm like, they do.
Yeah. Okay, so the second one is, did you have sex? And absolutely not. We are not having sex to create these surrogate babies. So the babies are none of our genetics. We actually go through a process of IVF. So surrogates do not have sex to get pregnant. Gestational surrogates do not use their own egg in this process, but traditional surrogates do. So typically gestational surrogates are the most common surrogacy out there. And that's where we're carrying a baby that is not our genetic makeup, none of our genetics involved in this baby. So we go through the process of IVF and an embryo transfer with the parent's embryo to get pregnant. So the parents, they create their embryos before we're even matched during this process. And we go through the process of IVF, and that has to do with many different medications such as progesterone, estrogen, sometimes Lupron injections. Just those are some of the medications that you might have during this process. But yeah, so we have to go through IVF, and that has a lot of medications and a doctor as well involved in that whole process. So no, we do not have sex to make these babies.
That was my husband's first question because I was like, I want to be a surrogate. He's like, what is that? And I explained, he's like, is that like prostitution? I was like, no, it's not anything. Then when I started explaining, he's like, oh, like, okay, that's cool, And even like, some of my old family, like the, my grandmas and stuff like that are like, oh, so you had to be with a man. And I was like, that's not how it works. And I don't think that would be okay with my marriage and my religion to like just hang out with somebody else and get pregnant.
Yes.
What's how easy it is?
When I was getting ready to have the baby, a lot of my husband's coworkers didn't really understand what was going on just because like it wasn't their business, So my husband actually had to explain to some of his coworkers, like, yeah, my wife is a surrogate, but it's not her baby. Yeah. It's not her genetics. I always tell everybody, I could be carrying a baby that's completely Asian, completely Black. The baby's not going to look like me at all. I am just a carrier. I'm just like the oven, so to say, or some people say it's extreme babysitting just because there's no genetics there. We're just the carrier.
It's so funny because our first journey, we didn't put anything on social media. So our whole plot was to like so nothing about me being pregnant, nothing about the surrogacy, just to, test it out. And then we were going to have our friend. So all of my babies have been like pure, like 100% Chinese. And my husband is a Samoan man. So he's this giant, man. And then there's me. And so we were like, we had called our friend. And he's like, he's Asian. And we're like, hey, do you think you could come to like the hospital for like a photo shoot? Because our whole plan was to like have him hold the baby and me like, oh no, and people look angry.
That's funny. That's really funny.
2 hours. So we didn't have time to plan any of it. It was like labor, boom, baby here. Well, I guess we'll try that next time.
Yes.
But yeah, no, definitely no DNA. Oh, look who we have here.
It's my baby Junior.
Hard for your baby.
So isn't this hard for your children? I would say no. So I was honest with my kids during the whole process. My kids are very young. If you guys don't know, they are 3 and 5 years old, but they did get the chance to meet the family multiple times. So I feel like that definitely helped making it easier for the kids to understand. But I feel like my children were not affected by my surrogacy in any way. And I think my kids are going to be very proud of me in the future when I remind them about what I've done, because they might forget because they're so young. And I think it's going to be a nice lesson to teach my kids that it's good to help others. But yes, since they got to meet the parents, even before I was pregnant, I would always tell them, like, that's Mikkel's mommy and daddy. Mikkel is going to go home with them, that he's not our mommy and daddy's baby. So it made it a lot easier for them to understand. So they really didn't ask me any questions. And they honestly kind of were very nonchalant and we're just like, okay, mom, like, just stop saying that. You're always just like, oh, it's not our baby. And they would just tell everybody that it's not our baby.
Yes. And there's books like Kangaroo Pouch, Surrogates, I think My Peas, Your Pod. There's a ton of books about surrogacy for children, whether they're the children of the intended parents or the children of the surrogate. There are a lot of books. My son was in high school with my first journey. And he was like, as long as it's not you and dad's, I'm fine.
Yes.
And my daughter was younger and she was just like, well, will I meet the baby in the family? And we're like, yeah, you can meet the baby in the family so you can see them go home. They actually call her big sister now, 8 years later, and we're on our third baby together. So she has siblings now that she loves, like, but they're like bonus siblings where she gets to feed them candy every now and then, see them, there's no fighting,
go home.
no financial. It's like a grand sister. That's what it should be. Awesome. So here we go.
So another misconception about surrogacy is you're being taken advantage of or being used. But I will say, like, I chose to do this and I'm extremely proud to do this. I wasn't coerced into being a surrogate in any way. I made this decision with my own mind and I put a lot of thought into this decision. And surrogacy is an ethical process and we just want to help families. We put a lot of thought into doing this. Laws across the United States ensure that both surrogates and intended parents are not taken advantage of, and professional surrogacy agencies like SurrogateFirst make sure that their clients are properly cared for throughout the process. Surrogates want to carry a child for the intended parents, and we are properly compensated for doing so. Surrogacy is a positive experience for all, and we want to do this. I think because there are a bunch of misconceptions about surrogacy all over the world. They feel like we're doing this because we need the money or like we're selling our body. But I don't see it like that in any way. I wanted to do this. I put a lot of thought into doing this. And I don't feel like I'm being used in any way because I chose to do it.
Awesome. I definitely agree. I can't say anything else. I mean, I think that's it for everyone.
Okay.
Oh, this one. Yep.
Okay, so I would never give up my child. How could you? So one of the most common misconceptions are that the baby is related to the surrogate, like I said before. Oh, something happened. It's okay. Yes, like I said before, they definitely think that it's our baby. Even when I would tell people, like in my son's school, that I was pregnant and the baby was a surrogate baby, they would be like, wow, like it's gonna be hard to give up your baby, isn't it? And I would be like, no, this baby has no relation to me. Like, so many people still do not understand. So yes, the intended parents, they use their own embryo and the surrogate carries the baby. And that's why we're known as gestational carriers. But in rare cases, there are surrogates that use their own egg, and that's known as traditional surrogacy. So that's how it could get confusing for other people, traditional surrogacy.
I think there's only like 1 or 2 agencies that do traditional surrogacy, and you have to really check on the state. But it's not as widely used. It's usually used more with like family or friends than in like a commercial surrogacy setting. So yeah, definitely understand that side. I always tell people too that like I went into it knowing that it wasn't my baby and not preparing for a baby to come home. So there was no baby shower. There was no creating of the nursery. There was none of that. It was me knowing that this child was going home with them. And my first surrogacy journey, I was a preschool teacher. And I told people, I love those babies in my class with all my heart. Like, they are my babies during the day. I'm going to take care of them, do right by them, make sure that they're set. But they have to leave at the end of the year. They have to go to the older class. It'd be the same thing as me telling those parents, like, no, your babies can't go home today. Or, well, I've had your babies for the year. They're going to stay with me till high school. Like, oh, that I was able to love them and care for them for the time that God allowed me to have them. And now they need to go on to their next class, or they need to go with their parents. So I think for us, as long as we go into it knowing, it's not like we carried a baby for 9 months and we've like built this relationship of like, you're my baby and you're coming home with me. And then we get to the hospital and we don't have a baby.
Yes.
Like, preparing for this day. And I think for me, that moment and maybe you can, agree or disagree, but that moment when you finally push baby out, or the C-section or whatever it is, however, a surrogate gives birth, and the parents meet their baby for the first time, like, to me, there was no way, even if legally I could have this baby, I would ever choose to, because like that love and compassion and that excitement and that heart of like, I remember my intended mom just holding her baby and saying, I've waited so long for you. Like,
Oh,
yes, 5 years failed IVF. Like many of these families like sacrifice, they pull their retirements, they refinance their homes, they, borrow from, friends, family, banks, like they do whatever they can to finally be a parent. And, and like, I could never imagine taking that from them.
yes.
So
I never even would want to as well. Like, it never feels like that. And that goes on to the next slide. Like, surrogates want to keep the baby. This is absolutely false. Let me move my thing over to the side. So surrogates do not want to keep the baby. While we were happy to help bring the baby into the world, keeping the baby is something that never crosses our minds. We see it as we're helping the family during this time, and we cherish the day the family is finally reunited. While we care for and have love for the family, surrogates never have maternal instinct for the baby, and we just want the baby to be healthy with his or her family when the journey is over. And this goes into, so I enjoyed seeing the baby with his family. I was happy to hold the baby in the hospital, but I was very happy to give him to his family. I'm not changing any diapers. I'm not feeding the baby. The baby, I never wanted to do any of those things. I'm just happy to see photos of him growing up. I never feel like the baby was mine. And I feel like that makes it easier emotionally because the baby is not my DNA, not my genetics. That's why I think traditional surrogacy for me is something I could not personally do.
no, I definitely agree with you on that.
Okay. So a woman will opt for surrogacy because she simply doesn't want to be pregnant and wants to save her figure and avoid pregnancy. So this is a big thing. They think surrogates are used just because, oh, I don't want to get pregnant, so I'm just going to pay somebody else to do it.
Yeah.
Surrogacy is very emotional and expensive process for a woman to have a baby. A woman who typically chooses surrogacy after multiple failed attempts and methods to conceive a baby herself, the decision to continue onto surrogacy is almost always last resort. There is little to no truth for a woman going through surrogacy to keep their figure, to be honest. Most women who want to be parents do not care about the temporary weight gain or being pregnant in general. Having a family is the most important aspect of their lives and their number one priority. So people are not using surrogacy to keep their body shape just because they don't want to be pregnant. It's for medical necessity. These women cannot carry children on their own. They would love to be pregnant if they can get the chance. They would love to do it. And this is something that's really hard for some mothers, having to go the surrogacy route because they, at the end of the day, they really wanted to carry their own baby.
No one thinks as a child like, oh, I can't wait for the day that I get married and have some other woman carry my child. Like you think about being a mom, you think about carrying your baby, and then obviously surrogacy for, same-sex couples too that can't carry their own children. Yeah, so I definitely understand that one.
Yes. So surrogacy is only for the wealthy or celebrities. So false. Yeah, celebrities use surrogates frequently, but most of the time, surrogacy is used for average people dreaming to have a family due to health issues. So many families save up for a long time to be able to use surrogacy because there is no other way for them to build their family. Celebrities do use surrogacy, but in reality, it is a rare occurrence, and most of our families are just average people. So I always get comments online such as, oh, are you Khloe Kardashian's surrogate? Are you a surrogate for a celebrity? And no, I actually haven't met anybody that's been a surrogate for a celebrity. I haven't met anybody, and I know lots of surrogates. So yes, lots of celebrities use it, but most of the time it's average people. They save a lot of money to be able to do this.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely agree with you on that one. I think people have this misconception, and the truth is it's not like they get paid incredibly higher than us because they have a VIP. And personally, I couldn't imagine the stress and pressure of like having someone, because I see people on TV, and so maybe I have a misconception of them, but I'm like, I would never want to be their surrogate. Like, I want a normal family with normal expectations where if I'm craving a milkshake during the pregnancy, they're not like, oh my gosh, like eat a grape,
Yes. Yes, that was something important for me. I really didn't want to have to change my diet in any specific way because whenever I'm pregnant, I'm already like extremely picky. So I wanted to go with the average people. I wanted to go with a family that would respect me.
Yeah.
I wanted to go with a family that put my emotions first. And I really got lucky with my intended family because they always put my feelings into consideration. And so I don't think I would want really a high profile client or intended parent to work with and for personal reasons, just because I would really like a more close relationship instead of like a business relationship.
And I don't know, like we have our own misconceptions. Like right now we're talking about surrogacy misconceptions. We may have our own misconceptions about helping a surrogate or helping a parent that are, in the media and things like that. So if you're this and you're a surrogate who's cared for someone famous, we don't need to know the details, but let us know. Was it a personal relationship? Did you have that, connection? Like that would be awesome to kind of find out because we all have our own misconceptions about this process.
Yes.
And so I think it's definitely important. I think we've shed our light on a couple of top topics that we are definitely misconceptions in the surrogacy world. Would you let everyone know how to get a hold of you if they have any questions or if they want to follow you on social media? Where would they find you?
So if you guys ever want to follow me on Instagram or on TikTok, my name is Mama Yessenia. So it's just MAMAYESSENIA. So it's just Mama Yessenia on TikTok and Instagram. And I'm also working on my YouTube channel currently to do more deep dives into things in the surrogacy industry. And also, if you guys want to ever send me an email, my email is Yessenia@surrogatefirst.com. Feel free to email me or even shoot me a DM anytime. I always respond to all of my messages. So always feel free to message me if you guys have any questions. Yes,
Awesome.
there's my email. If anybody would like to email me, or definitely feel free to reach out to me for any questions. It doesn't matter how big or small, or people are always like, oh, this sounds stupid, but can you answer it? I'm like, feel free to ask me anything. I'm an open book. I love to be completely honest and transparent, especially because when you decide to be a surrogate, it's definitely something extremely new for many people. And I definitely want to be honest when sharing my story, sharing my input. And so feel free to message me anytime.
Well, I think we did go a little bit over, but I think we covered some important topics. I don't see any questions in the question and answer category. So if you have anything, let us know. You can find out more information on www.surrogatefirst.com. You can reach out to Yessenia on her contacts. And then we are all here to help. You definitely can, as an intended parent or a surrogate, you can book a complimentary consult where we can answer questions about the good, the bad, the ugly of surrogacy, the process, timelines, costs. We want to make sure that you understand this fully, you're educated on making a right decision, what you're looking for in an agency, and why we both love SurrogateFirst and why we've chosen to work with them as experienced surrogates. Ask us questions about why, because we do want to make sure that you are educated in the process. We thank you guys so much. We will see you in 2 weeks with our next webinar. And again, check out our social media. So our Facebook, our Instagram, our YouTube channel, those are all going to have the schedule that is coming out. And so that way you can follow along. We will be doing more of a registered webinars moving forward. So if you want to be on a registration or our email list for those webinars, definitely reach out to us at Ashley@SurrogateFirst, ASHLEY, or Yessenia@SurrogateFirst, or info@SurrogateFirst. All of those are great. If you do have any questions in the future, let us know. And if we can touch on a topic that you've always wanted to know more about or you find information online with, reach out to us and we will add that to our calendar. So thank you guys so much for everything. Have a blessed day and we'll see you in 2 weeks.